Hello, good evening, everybody. Welcome to uh, a, a modified type of a chill chat. But we're going to be chilling with Alaska Jeff, uh, great streamer that I've had the pleasure to bump into. Was introduced to by the great mod of our channel, Jess SBD Girl, and who's got a lot of cool stuff and a lot of cool adventures and uh, looking for something a little different tonight and having a good conversation with another creator out there. Talk about all kinds of things between the two of us. Probably you'll get some Fortnite in and who knows what else. And I'm sure if you guys have questions or comments out in the, leave it in the chat and we'll go where it leads. Have fun with us and stuff. You know, um, that's what we're here for. Have a good evening together, hanging out and all that stuff. So, Wednesday night, 7 o'clock on the East Coast, and quite frankly, I'm right on 7 o'clock. It's kind of odd that my computer now is synced up with StreamYard. So, hey, I'm kind of in a different world there. So, greetings to everybody from whichever side you are on. If you're on Twitch, hey, welcome, thank you. If you haven't followed us yet, follow us over on Twitch at DadmanWalking55, and for all you on this YouTube side, make sure you smash that like button, hit subscribe if you haven't. We're at 193, 7 more to 200, and then I get to drink a unicorn honeydew drink. Yay. So anyway, at least it's not a 24-hour stream, but I will do another one this one day. But hey, I digress. But hey, thank you for everybody that's here, So with all those pleasantries right there, let me go ahead and introduce this man. Like I said, who actually contacted me and reached out, which I thought was a really, really cool thing. To see about doing something together, to talk together and things like that. And I had a chance to talk some and watch him on Fortnite at all kinds of times a day, and apparently corrupting some of his Fortnite players. Well, that's okay. I love gas stations in my own dadman way, but hey, let me introduce you to him. Look back earlier in the chat. The links have been posted. He's got different channels on YouTube and on Twitch also. So check the links out that Jess put in here. And thank you for doing that, Jess, while you were at work and having to get back. So he's on Twitch a lot, and he's also got some elements on the YouTube channel, but he can tell you all about that a lot better than I can do when it's time. Let me go ahead and bring in the great Alaska Jeff. Jeff, how are you tonight?
Greetings, one and all. Thank you, Dadman, for having me on here. Much appreciated.
Pleasure. I'm looking forward to seeing and hearing more from you and maybe doing some more things in the future. But, always a good thing to get a chance to sit around, get to know each other a little bit more, talk about things. And actually, in this case, we're going to talk a little bit about where you're from up there, a place that I don't know if I will ever get up there, but it's a really cool place, from the looks of it. Oh, cool.
I do appreciate that you have McKinley in the background. I just must say that your theming is great for today.
Well, I have to be honest. Everybody here will tell you it's not me. It's the great and gracious Mrs. Dadman Walking who comes up with all the graphics. So, but thank you. I will definitely, I think she's in the chat. So definitely thank her. But yeah, it's awesome what she does. And yeah, Mount McKinley, that's pretty cool, Jeff. Oh man. So, let's go ahead and say hi to a few people. We got 8 people watching us right now. So, and who knows? Things change with over time. Let me put the banner up. There you go. The little banner. Remind everybody to like, follow, subscribe as you can. But here, let's go through the chat. We'll see who's here today. Wade passed through earlier. Hey Wade, congratulations. Jeff, in your avatar there, you got the polar bear. We're here. I don't know if you've met him before, is the resident polar bear on YouTube, the great Snortopoopas Cuber. Hello, humans and other critters.
What a very unique name.
Yes. A unique fella and a great gentleman and a great guy. Absolutely. And we even have a gray wolf out there somewhere lurking at times. So, hey, but good to see you, Snorty. So that's why I really liked that avatar when you had it. It was so appropriate. And of course, the great mod Jess, who somehow finds a way to do anything and everything, whether she's working, sleeping, or whatever, all times of day and night. One of the great mods and people out there. Thank you, Jess, for all you do.
Jess is great.
Yeah.
And actually, Jess is the reason why I even am familiar with who you were.
Oh yeah.
We were chatting one day and started saying, "Hey, you need to reach out to Dadman." I was like, "Oh, I have no idea who this is," and she kept saying it over and over and over again. I finally like, okay, we need to actually do something about this. Obviously, Jess has definitely has given me some hints here, and
Yeah.
so that's what sparked the reason to actually kind of reach out and see if there's anything that we could be able to do in the future. So much appreciate to her for kind of making this happen.
Absolutely. Can't do it without her. One of the great mods here, always conscientious, always looking out for me and making sure I'm behind the times on a lot of lingo and crazy stuff. And mods like her keep me out of trouble from not messing up by accident. But yes, Jess is great. And we'll talk about some of those common interests a little bit later. Because I know there's a couple big interests that we have together. So all right. Well, let's see. There's Jess. Jess, of course, our guest, Alaska Jeff. Jeff, Snort Poopus is here. Let me make sure I know. And Hall. Hey, Hall, 2424. Welcome. Good to see you tonight. And here she is, the lovely, beautiful, gracious, multi talented Mrs. Dadman Walking, who she reminds me, Jeff. She constantly reminds me in a loving way that I can't afford her. Even the Amazon bill. She's like, pay me an Amazon, but you still can't afford me. But hey, thank you, dear, for all that you do. And see, Snorta Poopus is out here. The missus said, I was afraid you say that mountain is not in Alaska. Oh, no.
Yeah, no, you got it right. You got it right.
Yeah. Oh, and Snorta Poopus thinks he recognizes a cousin Grumble Snoot in the background of your avatar.
Oh no.
Oh yeah, he's related to everybody. When we play Fortnite too, yeah, it's the one area where you can hire the NPC, the polar bear. Yeah, Snort's all over that. So, but hey, well, Jeff, and like I said, we got 8 people watching us. So, Jeff, let's start with a little bit about you as a guest before we talk about Alaska and the other stuff. But talk a little bit about yourself and what got you into streaming, kind of what your experience is.
Well, now that's a very interesting question because I did not intend to go into this area even remotely. I'm still kind of dabbling. I have not even dedicated myself like hardcore into this stuff just yet because right now I am in this limbo period between contracts, and I started looking into this because people said, hey, we want to see streams moving forward. And I thought, okay, well, I'm going to just dabble in it here, dabble in it there. And I started noticing very much that the online world was kind of disconnected, you could say, in many ways from the real world. And that's what helped me to dive in more, because I thought, well, there is something going on here that I was never aware of, the communities I was never aware of. And it gave me a chance to really get a chance to meet them, so to speak, face to face, even though we're looking at each other through avatars and text and whatnot, and kind of see a side of our culture that, for the most part, has been in the shadows for myself. So I went into it because primarily I wanted to find a way how to create media. I am a media creator. I've been doing that professionally for many years now, and I was trying to find a new avenue to make it work. And streaming, lo and behold, has now become a part of it. And so, will it always be a part of my work moving into the future? I have no idea. But for the time being, it is a great chance to get to learn more about a variety of people and cultures, and get a chance to engage them in a much different way than I am familiar with.
Yeah,
That's basically how it all began.
Yeah. What types of on your streams? What types of topics or themes do you stream?
So we started off, and now that gets into an interesting backstory. I probably actually should have mentioned this from the start, which is when I was doing my very first streams, it was actually to help out other streamers. It was with the attempt to try and give some game streamers an opportunity to engage their audience or the whole concept of entertainment in a much different way. And so I spent a lot of time in theater and also in storytelling. And I very much wanted to try and dive into role playing. Well, I was helping streamers to actually figure out how to bring role playing into their streams. But to do that, that meant I had to also practice it in order to get there. So the first game that I really started diving into hardcore was Red Dead Redemption online roleplay. And that went on for a great many months. And it actually transitioned into doing Fortnite as well, doing StarCraft, League of Legends, sometimes Age of Empires, and a variety of other activities or games. And as well as making a bunch of community game days where we do things like Quiplash or Among Us.
Mm-hmm.
So we've gone all over the place, but it began with the Red Dead Redemption role plays.
I've heard about that game. I've never played it. Is it? I didn't realize it was a role play game.
Well, it can be.
It can
but
be.
It isn't primarily. It was first and foremost a single player game, but recently the online version has become a role play game, and not everybody takes it seriously, but it's a good way for people to practice their acting skills, and which is a big part of why we chose it for the streamers to be able to help work with them. Those days are now gone, but they might come again sometime in the future.
Yeah, I've seen it on a PS4, but is it really a role playing game, or is it more of a video game on the PS, like on your consoles?
So I don't know if you've seen any of the clips of the Red Dead streams I've done. There's a couple of them on YouTube, but primarily it is first and foremost a single player. And once you activate the online mode, you're dealing with a server that has about, I think it's like between 50 and 100 other players that you can encounter across the map. And most people will ignore you. But when you have other players that you're familiar with, they many times will be able to have an open dialogue with you. And thus you can role play and actually try and perfect acting skills while you are in this online multiplayer version of the game. So you're going about doing everyday tasks that the original game has, something like going out and hunting, dealing with bandits, defending different positions, going on quests. You can do that then as a group and pretend as if you are part of people that actually belong in that world and you're disconnected from the real world.
Yeah, it sounds interesting because I know I've seen people talk about it a lot, and I did not realize it was that type of game that had that kind of flexibility. I'm pretty linear with things, so when I think of seeing something on the PC, computers, whatever, I just think it's just a flat, just a straight video game and very flat. But that's kind of cool that you can interact with people and do stuff like that.
It's like a digital stage, and not everyone treats it that way. But if you want to practice your acting skills, then it's a very easy tool to be able to turn into that digital stage.
That's cool. Are there any other games what games do you like personally? I mean, I know you stream Fortnite and stuff, but is there any type of games that you really, if you wanted to just relax, that you prefer to play?
The one that is probably the best one for me to relax to is also the one that causes my head to have to fire on all cylinders, and that is Age of Empires.
Oh, wow.
Uh,
Yeah.
very difficult game, but at the same time, it is enjoyable because it feels very normal. Um, I very much like the medieval genre, and so Age of Empires 2 scratches that itch while at the same time giving some competitive gameplay that is similar to chess in many ways, and allows you to really kind of focus on ways to kind of test out some unique strategies that other games kind of don't always give you the chance for. You can actually forge new strategies with those units, where other games like StarCraft are
Hmm.
very restricting because they want to try and have the gameplay match what the developers wanted. Age of
Right.
Empires is more about what can you figure out to try and turn those strategies presented by the developers, how you can change them around and make your own techniques and strategies into something personal.
Hmm. That is interesting to hear about that. One of the things that you had reached out about, initially was something that um, I just started tinkering with. Actually, I'd played with a streamer before, probably a year ago, even before I started streaming, was Axes and Allies. It's a game that I'd
Mm-hmm.
known from high school. Didn't had heard about the online versions, but never really had anybody to play with till he played with me a year ago. Then he's right about the time I was kicking around an idea. I have a segment that I call Show and Tell with Dadman, and it could be a short show or it could be long, depending. Like if I do I've done a hurricane tracking chart, and I think that was my maybe half an hour
Mm.
and it was a metal one that we don't even know if it was real or somebody customized or what. It came from my wife's grandmother, um, and to Star Wars stuff, which could go an hour and a half, 2 hours. So, like I said, I call it Show and Tell Dad Man with like collections, things like that. And I decided to do that with Axis and Allies just before we did a recent stream,
Mm.
and turned out to be one of the most amazing streams I have done, in terms of actually live audience and views after. I apparently was finding out people in the chat loved the game, had an experience with it. I didn't know that many people had that kind of experience with Axis and Allies. And then that's one of the things Jess kept telling me on the other side was, hey, Dad Man, Alaska Jeff loves Axis and Allies. Loves Axis and
Oh yeah.
Allies. And I was like, you need to reach out to him too. So, she talked to me about that too. And so, it's interesting when a game like that, you can find some commonality, not just with you, but like multiple people out there that I never even thought of. And it turned out to be the like I said, a very watched, either live or replayed video, and even the live streams where we played were just off the charts, and it just surprised me, how a game like that. But that's a game that I've loved historically, just for the strategy. It's strategy, but it's also down to the roll of the dice. It's kind of like Monopoly, one of those games that it tests your friendships and stuff like that, and very much. Actually, the last match I played with the guys in high school, it was like, well, it was the year after freshman year of college, and pretty much we never played after that because one guy my ride got thrown out of the house, and because he questioned the leader's rules, and it was just
Mm.
memories. But hey, you know what? I ended up keeping the dadgum game, the classic game from '84. Well, I like the guy that had it was going into the Navy after high school. And so I figured the likelihood of him ever coming back was so remote and so low. I said, I'll keep it here, safe possession. Of course, he never came back, and then the rest is history. So, and that's a game, you know. So how do you like? How much do you like Axis and Allies?
It is a game that I miss playing. I used to do it all the time. Um, my brother and I forged some really aggressive strategies, and when we got to college, we got to finally test it out against real life people, and it was a great experience. But then we realized that it can be a friendship breaker if you don't approach it from a from just having fun with it. If you become far too competitive, it's amazing how quickly that game can devolve.
Oh, the
But
roll of the dice are the worst part, you know?
well, usually for us, it was like just realizing that, hey, this is kind of a competition of intelligence as much as chance, and so it became a very hotly desired title to kind of say you were the winner, because it's like, yeah, I outsmarted everybody as well as had the luck of the dice as well. It's like the best of risk, but it also adds in some of the actual war game strategies that would happen in the military, where they have kind of something similar, where everything does have chance, but you have numerical numbers here you're dealing with, you have position, you have to deal with resource management and transporting units. You don't get that in something like Risk, but you do get kind of like a very subtle version of that in Axis and Allies. Actually, I was a bit surprised when you had that stream, because I also thought that, well, how many people are actually even aware of this game these days? Last time I saw it in stores was back in 2006, something like that.
That sounds about right. I
Yeah, I've
think
not seen it
that
since.
was I think the anniversary edition was probably back then. I had to look up what year. Let's see. I might have it right here. But yeah, because it's a game and it's changed over the years. Like you said, it has some of the strategy. It has some of the military, feel of it. And but what's so frustrating with the roll of the dice, though, is you could have 2-1 superior advantage and you still lose if the dice goes against you. But you know what? That happened in real war too, where just because you had numbers didn't mean you won. So the battle. So yeah,
Absolutely.
it was a lot. See, the version that I like to play is the anniversary edition of the board game. The online game is great, and it has it. I think it's almost a little overpowered XP, or overpowered to the Axis a little bit, because it's just like, how do you stop Germany if you're the Soviets? And usually in a real game you could do it at times, but the anniversary edition has Italy as another country. So instead of Germany defending Italy and all and the Mediterranean, you actually have an Italian force there, which provides a different nuance to the game. And usually they recommend that your better players, your experienced players, play Italy, because you have so few units and you only produce 10 each time at the beginning. So 10 IPCs. So you can't buy much. So let me say hi to Stunning and Brave. Hey, Stunning, welcome. Glad you're in here tonight with us. So we got Alaska Jeff. All right, Jeff, we talked about some of the games we've had interest in common and things like that. A bit of your background. A little bit about me is, I've been doing this since about August. August 19th was the first date. So,
what was it that caused you to even dive into this, though? That's what I'm curious about.
Well, I kind of had always gotten a little bit of the itch. It started with my kid, the kid that gave me the name Dad Man Walking 55. The name from that started from 2020, which we all know happened then. And I was getting irritated, depressed, whatever, because of could go nowhere, do nothing. And, I had no hobbies. And, so he's like, come on, Dad, let's play Fortnite. So I'm like, okay, fine. Just make me Dead Man Walking, because I'm just going to get killed because I don't know these controllers and all this other stuff. I had too many buttons and stuff. And I'm kind of like Shatner in Airplane 2, blips and buttons and stuff. And it's, it's really, really interesting. Let me say that's cool, Stunning. I saw that. Congrats. That's awesome when you have things like that today. Things like that happen with family. Well, and what my kid did was made me like, Dad, I can't do that to you. You'll be Dad Man Walking. Now, there's a lot of Dad Man Walkings out there, so I had to put a number with it. So 55 is just a number, but that's how that story happened. Well, and Ang would let me come on the streams on Twitch. She's got over 1,200 followers on the Twitch side, has built up something. I'm trying to not to brag too much. I know she doesn't want to talk so much about her, but proud dad moment. And and it's like, so she brought me on a few times here and there, and I like it. I like it. Can I do more? Can I do more? And then finally she's like, Dad, get your own channel. You know, like, so I branched out. There's some people like Amanda Gillum, who's somebody that a friend of mine that's on Twitch, invited me on to do a stream here or there too. There's some people that I got involved with over on YouTube in the daytimes when we work at home and stuff. I went on some of their gaming Fortnite streams and, just started liking it. And when Amanda's kept encouraging and Mark D with a C with me, and gosh, this hashtag blaming. But yeah, but I was a guest on different things like with Amanda, with Mark D with a C, uh, and actually Lorena Creole invited me on once a year and a half ago to talk sports and stuff. And I got exposed to little bits of those things, and it just finally around uh, this summer I kept talking about it. My wife's like, just do it or shut up, And hi Balzette. And what really forced it this time was that August, the start of college football season. I wanted to do college football, and it was like, hey, you either get on the ground floor and go, or you're going to miss it. And so, I started doing it, and I think the drive was college football. Though I wanted to do something different, and because there's a lot of I I want to do things that are fun and relaxing. Yeah, I love playing Fortnite. I do a lot of that stuff, and obviously, I have a love for gas stations. But I just wanted to do something else like football because there are some big channels that do football, but really it's hard to find it on YouTube or anything like that. And obviously, I like talking a lot. My wife's like happy that I get people to talk to. So it's kind of like a combination of those things, like just wanting to do something, and finally had the impetus, which was college football, and the rest is history. Because then I've added gaming, I've added a movie chat. I got some other things that are coming up. I do this thing called Chill Chat. This is kind of a modified Chill Chat. Chill Chats are usually things where I just go solo and talk and find something to talk about and chat with the people that are watching. Lay back and relax. And just to kind of have a good time and talk, and the history things that are coming up. So there's a lot of different varied interests that I have, and that's kind of what, that's kind of how I got into it. But my kid definitely spurred it and had a big hang. And like I said, a couple of the other creators kept encouraged me to do it because they said, do it, just, you do it. And I tell you what, we got 9 people with us here tonight, and these are the people that make me happy to do it. Because and a lot of them are so regulars, whether not just Fortnite, but all of them. And I feel like I got a family that I'm talking to here. And, and I just want it to be I want to be different. I want to be something where we're, where we're having fun, where we're, getting away from the troubles of the world, That's why, as I've told you, and I've told people, I don't want pop culture. I don't like politics. But I tell you, it's hard sometimes with sports, because there are sometimes where sports, pop culture or politics do bleed in, especially like in NCAA football with the way that they're getting paid now. Some of the themes, if you know what I mean, out there, different types of things that they've got. Sometimes protests, there's types of things, and I just try to work around the edges of that and stay away from it as much as you can. But I don't want it to be the thing. Let's focus on the game, because if I want to be the type of sports streamer where, we'll geek out over the numbers and the terms and all this, but listen, you come in and don't know what it is, ask a question. Obviously I love talking, so I love to teach and tell people about the game. That's why I coached and refereed middle school, high school basketball in a church league, things like that. So I try to bring that stuff into here. So long story there for that question, but
that's good to hear.
Thanks for asking it. So
I got to say that I noticed that there's a lot of people online right now that very much want to kind of leave um, a lot of very sensitive topics out of the communities, and I can understand that. We have so much of our world has become hyper politicized, or movements have caused a lot of strain upon different communities, and I've noticed a lot of people have pulled back from it. I'm actually kind of the opposite side of
Mm-hmm.
it, but I try and approach it in a very, we'll say, a very neutral fashion as best as I can.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why is because I didn't have games or sports that I could really invest in growing up. A lot of my world was revolved around military upbringing, around government uh, changes in our nation, or geopolitics. We were traveling all the time, and one of the things my parents did not want us to have was games,
Mm-hmm.
and I can actually respect them for that. It allowed me and my siblings to become far more creative because of it. But at the same time, it kind of gave me a passion for something that I realized a couple of years ago really set people on edge. And so, what I learned was how to try and approach it in as neutral of a way possible, to try and convey like the importance of things that are happening, but still allow people the chance to kind of live life without having to feel bombarded.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe I would have felt a little differently if I had gotten a chance to really do some cultural activities or games, or if Alaska had a sports team, which terrible that we've lost that. But there's nothing to root for. And so it's like, well, what's the one thing I can root for? Well, it's the thing that I was surrounded by growing up,
Mm-hmm.
which was the military,
Mm-hmm.
which meant that basically it was the nation.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I was highly influenced by that. I was highly influenced by the churches that we went to growing up. And so I very much still I love having information about what's happening in the world, what's happening in the country, even if it's not
Mm-hmm.
something that I'm too keen about. It makes me frustrated, but at the same
Yeah.
time, I thrive off of understanding what's happening in order to try and find out ways to help improve it moving forwards. But again, I try and tailor that so it's not so, I don't try and make my love and passion, which is very adverse to a great many people in this country. I try not to make it like abrasive and in your face sort of thing.
Right.
I attack it from the side.
Well, that's interesting. Taking a cerebral look at it, and trying to take the emotional and the bombasticity out of it, because, if I got, I'd probably get out of control. At my temperament, but it just, and that's that. I respect you for that, and I think that's kind of interesting to do that. But to be a little honest too, because of work I do, I am already predisposed against doing politics or pop
Mm,
culture stuff, because and then I don't talk about my work, so those type of things, because I don't want to, I want to be careful. I don't want somebody to say, well, he's out there pushing this or pushing that, and that's why, one of the other reasons why I stay out of a lot of that stuff. So to be fair, it's not just that, but really seriously though, deep down is I got enough things that I have to worry about at the end of the day,
mhm,
and I just want to be loose and have fun, and I want it where people can come and have fun. But I still, at the same time, I do like what you say. I like the way you will confront an issue or say what you have to say, and like you said, you do it in a different way and not just uh, ad hominem attacks, or just echo chambers, or just just railing out of control. My wife told me one thing many, many, many years ago that actually I've in recent years have learned to deal with better, or to actually apply it. Unfortunately, except when she's around, because I'm just so casual. But you mentioned she's right. Is you may be right on every single point you make, but with how you perceive, how you say it, people may shut their ears. They may not even listen to you. And
mhm,
I've tried to operate more on that standpoint. And like you said, the way you're approaching it is, there's so much out there yelling and screaming about this. And though, if we're going to engage in the the arena of ideas and debate, then well, we also got to present ourselves seriously and with and focused in doing that. Because if all we do is yell and scream and attack and put somebody on the defensive, odds are like that they're going to shut down or be quiet, or you won't have that debate. I mean, do I want to yell and scream and feel good, or do I want to convince somebody to my uh, perspective? And that's kind of the
Hmm,
way I look at it. Yep. But hey,
absolutely.
yeah, awesome. All right. Well, hey, Jeff, we got 9 people with us, and thank you everybody that are here. So, Jeff, if we're ready, why don't we go ahead and see some of what you got about the great state of Alaska?
Okie dokie.
All right.
Let me see here. I have quite a collection of photographs I got all ready for the stream here. Should I just present right here on
Yeah.
StreamYards?
Yeah. Go ahead and present, and I think it's up to you present, and then I'll put it up. So, hey, I'm actually learning how to do more StreamYards these days. The missus told me you're gonna have to learn how to do this stuff, and yeah, she's right. So, hey,
All right, so can I select the correct screen here?
all right.
Because I am going to be using Google Earth to help kind of inform people about some of this region as well.
Okay, sounds good. Let's see if we get some polar bears in there too. Hey, all right, here we go, Jeff. There we go. You're
All
up and
right.
running.
So this state is huge. I don't think people realize just how big it is. It is about a third of the landmass of the space of the continental United States, twice the size of Texas, but the range from like the tip of the Aleutian Islands back to the Panhandle up to Barrow, whatnot, is basically the equivalence of having to do operations between California and the Carolinas. It is huge.
So, do the
And
Aleutians go all the way over to Kamchatka?
pretty much, I believe it is the last island right here that is not technically in U.S. territory.
Wow.
Uh, but yeah, it is a long distance. Let me try and pull up places and see if it'll actually list the. Nope, it won't. Okay, but yeah, it's up to around here. I think these two islands are Russian. This right here is the last island that I know for certain is within U.S. territory.
Wow, that's some distance.
Yes, so there, all this is within the territory of the United States. Each of
I,
these islands right here as well are a part of
mhm.
the U.S. There is towns, there's cities out there. It is not very well known. One of the best fisheries are out here in the Aleutians. Um, there are a couple of other fisheries around here as well. There is some other cities that I honestly have very little kind of idea about how they actually function. One of them is this area right here of Gamble. Uh, this place right here is just out in the middle of nowhere, and it's just a little grid out there
Wow.
in the silt lands and rocky formations of the islands northwest. But this is very much what an Alaskan town looks like when you're out in the bush. You will see them in the same sort of pattern. You will see all the lines as where people go down to the coastline to do fishing and whatnot. And then you'll usually see some sort of community buildings and fuel reserves and things like that. But yeah, a lot of the houses out here are basically look like shipping containers, in part probably because they actually convert actual shipping containers into a lot of houses in some regions.
Well,
But
I've
you'll
seen a
find,
lot of that on YouTube, on the internet lately. Yeah, that's a modern thing, is shipping container houses too. So, hey,
yeah. So you'll find areas like that. You'll find areas like up here where towns are actually being evacuated because all these holes that you see out here, all these lakes, is because the land is actually eroding into the ocean. So you do have problems like that as well. This area used to be a lot more solid. They no longer can live out there, and I believe the town is right along here. Yep, right there. So you'll see how close they are to the shoreline.
Yeah.
This one's in the clear, the town of Wales, but up here there's another town that is very much in danger, and they have actually already relocated the last like 2-3 years. So Alaska has that. It has the extent of the islands. It has little tiny towns, and then you have a lot of beautiful nature preserves. A lot of mountains. Here's Mount McKinley right out here.
Like Valzette said, tiny houses. I guess tiny houses, tiny towns.
Very much.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
And then you do have the other side, which is the big cities, and this is the region that I'm in. Is the biggest population center of the state of Alaska.
Yeah, because Juneau is further down further south, though, right?
Yes, Juneau is right over here.
And Juneau's the state capital, and how many big cities are there in Alaska? I mean, what you would consider, like what we would consider big cities. I know Juneau, Anchorage.
Based upon a big city as what you're familiar with, Anchorage.
Mm-hmm.
that's like it.
Oh,
Alaskans, though, when we think about what cities we have Juneau,
mm-hmm.
we have Anchorage, we have Wasilla, we have Fairbanks, we have Nome, we have Barrow.
Whoa, way up there.
Yep, way up here, and I've been up there, and we'll actually address that a little bit later about what it's like up there in Barrow. Yes. We have Bethel over here. There's a couple of other regions all around here. There's a place like down here, a little tiny area that's called Seward. Actually, a very well-known, very populous area for what Alaska has. But in comparison to what the rest of the U.S. would consider, this place doesn't even appear as a blip.
Right.
It is very small.
Is that down between glaciers? I mean, is that like...
Yes.
So
well,
the town...
basically...
It'd be like in the Appalachians, where you have a town down in the middle of the valley. You got big high mountains on both sides, and then the towns in the flat part.
Yeah. So this area is actually here's a good spot to probably kind of start our journey into Alaska, because a lot of ships will come by here. Mm-hmm. This area right here is very mountainous. You can see the glaciers on either side. And these glaciers in some areas are still growing. There's other areas that are shrinking, but for the most part, these glaciers are fairly neutral. There is a very popular cruise that you can take that will go out around and go visit some of the glaciers up close and personal. Mm-hmm. A lot of fishing vessels come out of here. Halibut charters tend to come out of this area. And actually, one of the very first settlements up here in Alaska started right here. There was a belief that you needed to build a railroad to really bring people into the state, which made a lot of sense. Alaska is very big. You're not going to be able to get there with wagon. And back in the late 1800s, when they were evaluating how they were going to actually get into Alaska, mm-hmm. Well, they thought, well, the rivers, there are rivers, but it doesn't get where we need to go. Or there's other areas that are too unpredictable for ships. Mm-hmm. So like up here, where like all the gold mining was taking place up here in the greater Seward Peninsula and Yukon River, all this stuff was very rich, but a lot of this was frozen over. This ocean was basically off limits to ships for the majority of the year. So they needed another place to kind of get started. Down here was a perfect location to kind of get that beginning. But there was a tragedy that happened shortly after they started building the railroad into the interior. And that is when there was an earthquake and a tsunami actually wiped out everything. Wow. And so Well, almost everything, because they had another area right over here that survived. It was just outside, so the wave came up, avoided the lumber camp that was, I believe, is a lumber camp that was over here, wiped out all the progress that was done by the railroad, and just pulled it out into the ocean. In this area out
Wow.
here, very deep. Whales come into here all the time, so you could be right here on the shoreline, waiting for your boat to kind of come by and you so you can go out fishing. You're just looking out and you just see whales just kind of right off the shoreline feeding in this very deep harbor. So very common place for people to go is Seward.
Let me
It
ask
has
one
its
question.
problems as a town,
Let me
though.
ask a
Mhm.
question. There, we'll stop you real quick because, like Balzette said, beautiful country, but way too cold. But the good luck on building a railroad, because at least for the way I'm looking at it, that looks pretty mountainous and icy and stuff. How could they build railroads in and through there if they were trying to connect to the mainland or to the continental U.S.?
Very good question, because there is we look at this area of Anchorage right up here where the population center is, and we think, well, why not just start right there?
Mm-hmm.
Well, part of the reason was that this whole region is very unpredictable because of tides. This area right here, Turnagain Arm, has the what is it? The second highest tides in the world.
Wow.
Uh, very fast, and most of this will be turned into silt. It'll be ocean 1 minute, and it'll be drained out and it'll be completely silt. So you have to be careful about bringing ships into here. And so you always have like these dredges out there kind of deepening the channels because it is not ideal for shipping. Well, back in the 1800s, they needed something that was a bit more stable. And so there's two locations. One was up here. And this is another really good region to try and go to for ships. But it was a
Mm-hmm.
little too difficult for them to try and drill into the mountain because this area is cut off by a mountain. Well, down here, there's actually a fairly flat path. It might not seem like it, but right here, when you
Mm-hmm.
go up this area, it is all very straight and fairly flat. The whole peninsula of Kenai is in these segments right here, as you can see. These mountains cut it off,
Yeah.
but you'll see these deep valleys all between it. These are flat and they're fairly safe to travel along at all times. So they were going to build a railroad up into here and just have it go along the coastline, go up to this area that people were starting to build of Anchorage, and just keep going north. The idea was to try and get it as far north as they could, which was up around the Yukon,
Mm.
which that is now considered the Alaska Railroad. They finally did complete it. It took a long time, but it did finally happen, and it is a very scenic experience. Now, one thing I would like to just mention before we go too much further into this world of Alaska,
Okay.
it is not as cold as people think.
Okay. Interesting.
That is a deceptive bit of information that television tells us all the time. This place is not cold.
Well, I tell you what, from some of the Canadian temperatures I hear about in Canada, I think the same thing myself. But then, of course, when you see the ice road truckers and the Deadliest Catch, all those, and you see, they always seem to show it when it's like freezing and frigid, really frigid. So, but
Mhm.
yeah, that's interesting because I would imagine certain times of year it's pretty darn warm. I guess with the Earth's tilt on its axis, and there'd have to be times where it's not always cold.
True. Now, if you were to say that Alaska is like freezing cold, that is the equivalent of saying that Britain is cold,
Mm-hmm.
because we're actually about the same latitude as Great Britain.
Oh wow! See, I don't.
So
And
that's where I am.
that's
But
what I think is
if
fascinating. Is that's where you're like you're on the even latitude with Britain. Okay, I know that. I think what sometimes we do is we we focus on that northern point, like you showed earlier, and how close that is to the Arctic Circle,
Mhm.
and we may attribute it to the whole state when that's not true.
True.
One of
This
the things
center
that,
of here gets up to
yeah.
100 degrees during the summer, if not 110 sometimes.
Now,
Very hot.
is that flat terrain in that area?
No, some of it is flat, some of it
Oh,
is
okay.
mountainous. It's a little hard to see right here, but it is still very mountainous. There's a lot of flat terrain, but
Hmm.
it is the summers up here are incredibly beautiful. And out here though, it gets very hot. I can't stand the heat up here, and this
Hmm.
is technically within the Arctic Circle.
Well, and that would make sense to me, especially in the summers, like I said, because of the tilt, the Earth's tilt, and at the times of year when it's actually closer to the sun, which then makes longer days, I believe. Because one time I freaked out going up to Cincinnati once, and that's even uh, a lot further south than you, obviously. But what was so funny, it was in August in Cincinnati on that latitude, it was still sunlight at 10 o'clock at night. And I was like, how do you go to sleep when it's so light out? But it was funny that happened.
Hmm. I see that Mrs. Dabman
Yeah.
walking says, is it humid? It is
Yes.
not. It is actually very dry. So because of it, the temperatures do not affect us the same way that would in other parts of the country.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, most of the state is very dry, but there's water everywhere. You've
Mm-hmm.
uh, you've heard about how Minnesota's land of 10,000 lakes.
Right.
Well, Alaska is the state of 3 million lakes.
Hmm.
And
Wow.
so, yeah, we got a ton of lakes up here.
Yeah. So basically, it's not always below 70. It's even over 70 in a lot of places, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Right now, though, we have a very long winter this year.
Mhm.
So right now,
Okay.
there's still about 3 feet of snow out there.
Ugh. Yeah. And I guess that just happens to the luck of the draw, like everywhere else. The length of
Mhm.
your winter just depends on the climate and what happens. So that.
Absolutely.
Now, let me ask you real quick before you go further with that. Looking back to I mean, you see all the mountains, and specifically like out on the Aleutians, are those considered volcanic islands,
Oh,
or
yeah. There are a
they're
lot of volcanoes around here.
okay?
A lot of
Because
volcanoes.
I just was wondering, because I know a lot of times they form volcanic islands, especially those out in the sea like that, like Hawaii and things like that. But because there are two islands that I'm always attached to, Attu and Kiska, because
Mhm.
of studying World War II. And are they further out on the Aleutian chain?
Right here is Attu.
Wow.
I was going to say, I remember that this is part of U.S. territory. I couldn't remember the name of it because the names weren't popping up. But yeah, this is Attu right there.
Oh my gosh, they still have a U.S. Army Navy airfield. Wow.
Yeah, so this area is quite well. There's a lot of fascinating territory out here, and a lot of these islands people have very little contact with, or no one's even stepped foot on some of them. Well, okay, well,
Right.
like on a regular basis. Of course, somebody's going to have stepped foot on them because they just want to, brag that they've been to every single island out here. But
Mm-hmm.
these islands out here are beautiful. There are some areas out here where there are islands that are so steep that only birds live there. And so people take drones out there sometimes to film. But yeah, all these islands are very more or less dangerous to kind of live on. You got volcanoes, you got very severe storms that will come through here. If you're cut off, if you're out here, you get cut off very quickly.
Yeah.
The only place that you're not is a place called Unalaska, which I believe is why are there no labels appearing right now? I turned
What
on places.
what did you call it?
Unalaska. Here we
Unalaska.
go.
All
Yes,
right.
is
Wow.
right here. This is one of the best spots to try and get to go fishing out here. Fairly well known up here. It's a very strange name. A lot of jokes because it has "un" in it.
Yeah, that's the
But
first thing I
yeah,
thought of.
this is a big island, Unalaska Island, and very, very beautiful. I've not been out there.
Yep.
Um, I've not really had an interest in going out to the Aleutian Islands. A bit too isolated for me.
Yeah.
But all these regions right along here
Mm-hmm.
are all technically kind of similar to what Unalaska is becoming. You can see that they're all kind of merging together.
Hmm.
And you might think, well, that's not possible within our lifetime for these areas to merge together. And I would say that it is a possibility. It is possible, however unlikely, that these islands could all merge together within the next 100, 200 years. The reason why, the
Mm-hmm.
ocean up here in Alaska, notice how you can see like the deep ocean out here, and then you see the shallow ocean right here.
Right.
Up here, it is 50 feet deep. So
Wow. Okay.
take into
That's not
account down
much.
here, yeah, all it takes is one volcanic eruption to merge these together if it like happened at the right spot.
Yeah.
So out here, of course, is not quite so. It is all very much still
Yeah.
deep, but all along here is very shallow. And that is kind of a dilemma for like when shipping was trying to go up into here because the ocean is so shallow.
Right. Well, I would. My only thing with the Aleutians would be obviously the history standpoint. It would just be neat to be
Mhm.
go to those two islands. And yeah, I'll just say a little bit in the chat. Balzette said, "I'm beyond sick of snow, especially since I've been to South Korea twice." Snorta Poopas noted that on Alaska, and then Balzette on Alaska is almost as funny as Phuket, Thailand. Oh, oh yes. Hey, well, we got 10 great people watching us, Jeff. Great. I love this information. This is amazing. And thank you. I'll be quiet and let you continue with what you want to say next because the geography is amazing. And, I can't wait to see other pictures, but I mean, just looking at the layout, the volcanic islands, the mountainous terrain, and even learning that they were building railroads through here, or trying to build railroads through here. I just seems like a monumental feat for what they have
Mhm.
accomplished up there.
Absolutely. Trying to come up to Alaska was such a very difficult task. Uh, you know about how Alaska was purchased from Russia?
Mm-hmm.
Well, when the purchase happened, it was because the Russians came along here and basically butchered every animal that was within sight.
Right.
We actually lost a lot of species, including the sea cow, Stellar
Mm-hmm.
sea cow that was out here on the Aleutian Islands. Some people have claimed to have still seen it. That those reports are unverified yet. I hold out hope that there still might be sea cows somewhere out here, however unlikely. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but there were a lot of creatures that were put to an end, and it took a long time to actually have the fur trade recover. Well, Russia stripped it clean, and then they left, and then the czar was like, well, we have this useless piece of territory out here beyond the boundaries of Kamchatka. Who wants to have this place? We would have to build like docks over here and be ferrying stuff back and forth and try and build a railroad. And it's like, you know what, that stuff's just not possible. And this was back in the 1800s, so
Mm-hmm.
it's to them, they didn't know how easy travel was going to become in the future. So they just had ships going back and forth, and it's like, well, let's just get rid of it. So they sold it to the U.S. and the U.S. came out here, and it's like they went up to Nome and they put their hands into the sand, and there was gold mixed in with the grains of sand.
Oh
It was
wow.
so thick up there, one of the biggest gold strikes in human history. And
Hmm.
so then Russia was like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
we just stripped this thing whole completely bare, and you go up here and you find gold immediately. And so then we started traveling up, but problem again was that this whole area was frozen over. And back then, Alaska was really deep, in a really deep freeze,
Mm-hmm.
which that gets into some stuff that's probably a little too deep as to what is believed to have been happening around that time period,
Hmm.
but that can be saved for another time if you ever want to have a follow-up.
Hmm.
But so we came over here to I believe it was Skagway right here, in order to travel into the interior, and that's where, if you see in the pictures of men climbing a mountain to try and get into the interior of the Arctic regions to mine for gold, this is where that would have been happening, because this area was at least accessible from Seattle. You'd come up here into the fjord, and then you would travel over the mountain range into the interior, and your goal was to get to the Yukon. And once you reach the Yukon, which was right here, then that was this whole region had gold that you could start mining. And then they would just meander on their way over, and then they found Fairbanks, and there's a lot of gold around there. They ended up using a technique where they would take river water, because this whole area was full of permafrost. They would take river water and thaw out all the permafrost, and it caused a lot of scarring of the land, because the permafrost was so very it was basically how a lot of this territory was built up, and so that destroyed all the permafrost. Well, if you listen to some people, they say that the loss of the permafrost was a terrible event,
Hmm.
one of the worst things that could have really happened for the region. But if you look at there now, you'll notice that there is a city here. There's
Okay.
also farmland.
Hmm.
What's interesting is that what the miners were doing to quickly mine for gold actually made it so that this area became stable for building buildings.
Oh,
It
really?
gave you like actual farmland. And so now it's like, was getting rid of the permafrost good or bad? Right now it looks like it actually allowed for settlements to begin. Same thing down here in Anchorage, is that there's a lot of problems with permafrost. It is almost completely gone in this area. Well, we also don't have houses that are collapsing because of permafrost melting underneath it. So yeah, there's like pros and cons.
Hmm.
But yeah, so this area up here, Fairbanks, exists primarily because you have the gold miners that were using this dredging of the river to try and also then warm up the area so they can actually get to the gold underneath the permafrost. Actually, and I have a photo of what it's like inside of there. I got to see one of these
Yeah.
permafrost caves when I was up there in Alaska.
Okay. Wow.
So in here, it smells like similar as if you got somewhere between dust and that's deep soil smell from potatoes, somewhere between there.
Somewhere between potatoes and what again?
And like a kind of a foul dust smell.
Ugh, yeah.
So yeah, it's somewhere between there. It's not a pleasant scent, but for the most part, it's freezing. So you're not really going to have that smell really affecting you. But notice all that haze right here.
Yeah.
Back here, it's clear. The moment you walk through there, all this haze builds up because it is such a very fine soil that any disturbance causes this cloud of dust to appear. You want to make sure to keep your mouth kind of covered because otherwise you're breathing in a lot of soil. You want to wash out your clothes thoroughly as well, because that stuff sticks with you. But a lot of this area is fascinating on the inside because you can actually find like where the river actually once passed through here and then it froze. And so you have like a cross section of river water that had been over the area. You go down here and you'll actually find like a bit of mammoth that's still stuck out of here. But this area right here is kept at freezing temperatures by the U.S. government because this is a area of experimenting. They wanted to kind of see what it was like to monitor this place. And it's been quite the challenge. They're always finding new things. I personally think some of the discoveries they made are jumping the gun at times, but there are different viewpoints as to what happened out here. And so this is one of the last areas where you can find permafrost in the area, and one of the only ones where you can find a cave that was dug in order to try and research this stuff, a cave that didn't immediately implode. So
Wow.
there's a hatch down here
Hmm.
because they seal this off to keep it freezing, because the moment air gets in here, the whole thing will collapse.
Wow. Well, Bowsette says it's like baby powder. Um,
Oh, yes.
that's interesting. Yeah. So we've got 12 people watching us right now. So hey, let me just take the shot to say, hey, follow us on Twitch and definitely hit the like button here on YouTube and subscribe if you haven't. Welcome everybody. We got Alaska Jeff that is showing us a lot of stuff about Alaska. And it's just not surface pictures. We're learning a lot about the geography and the history of how things were made, created there, and just fascinating, Jeff. So appreciate everything so far, and I'll let you keep going from here because this is really. So let me ask. Get it back to you, but with this question. So this is underground cave, but they had to actually keep it regulated at a colder temperature to recreate the permafrost. Is that correct?
They dug into the permafrost.
Oh, they dug into
So
it.
they thought once upon a time that maybe permafrost would be like good for bunkers or whatnot, and then they started doing it, and these things were collapsing. So they thought, hey, let's just dig one of these and then seal it off and then research it. So this has been in research for several decades now, I believe. It's one of the last areas in Fairbanks that actually still has permafrost. I bet within our lifetime, it very well could collapse. The reason why is because the permafrost around it is still melting. So
Right.
will it still be there in the future? Likely not. But there are areas in this world where permafrost will still be, and so they'll probably just find a different one to try and research. But this one's good because it's near a river, and so it gives us different information than what other regions would give us.
Okay.
And that allows us to kind of move on. So from Fairbanks up into the north. Now, this is the one that you tend to see all those TV shows about. This is the one where they'll show you, oh, Alaska's freezing cold and oh, people can barely survive. They have to like basically lick icicles if they want. They get water. They have to go out hunting every single day to get food. Well, that's not really the case up here, but it sure makes for good dramatized TV. The area that we'll start at is over here at Nome. Nome is the area where I said that they put their fingers into the sand and they found out that there's gold coming out of it. Well, the city of Nome actually started because the native populations around here didn't want them anywhere near their villages. And so the settlers thought, well, let's go to this area right here because no one wants it. And so that's where the city of Nome began. Up until then, most of the native populations were over here because this is where the whales were, or they were over here because this is where you would find, I think it was fish stocks that were going to be over here. They didn't have any interest in the gold. And so the town of Nome was built, and you'll notice that there's a lot of little tiny islands out here. Now, let me pull up a picture of this. This is stunning.
All right.
I should actually have this saved somewhere.
While Jeff's pulling it up, thank you for everybody that's hanging out with us tonight. Feel free, leave your comments in there. And, Jeff, you'll see that we got kind of a crazy group of people over here with a lot of sense of humor and stuff and things like that. So, oh yeah, do y'all have Walmarts up in Alaska?
Yeah, we do.
Okay.
They don't exist on the beyond like the main road.
Right.
So you'll have them down here in Anchorage. You'll have one down in Soldotna. By the way, Soldotna, up and coming location. This is going to be a big city one day. It already is for Alaska. You'll notice there's mountains over here and there's this open territory. Soldotna is growing because it is right along this very profitable river for fishing. There's also other areas around here that are pretty nice. Homers down here. This whole area, though, is probably going to keep growing in population. But this area has Walmart. Up here in Fairbanks has Walmart, and that's basically where it ends.
Okay. Yeah.
So yeah, a lot of the territory that doesn't have like standard
Right.
businesses, it has Alaskan businesses.
And then that's where we're making our journey north now. I got you. Okay.
Right. So right here is this place called King Island. It's
Okay.
a strange location. Actually, let me pull up the map, of the region. Oh wait, no, that's Sledge Island. My bad. King Island. Where is King Island? It is.
It still amazes me though that the topographical detail on some of those maps and stuff, that the mountain terrain.
Mm-hmm. Okay, maybe that's King Island out there. Let us type that in.
You know, from what it looked like, that looked like what was on the label.
Yeah,
Yep.
that
Yeah.
is King Island. Okay, so this place right here is called King Island because this is where the chieftain of the region would live. Um, so you have the settlers coming into Nome, you have the native population living in this area, and you have this place called King Island. Well, if you've ever seen these islands, you know it is pretty dangerous living out there. Here is what their town looks like.
Wow.
Yeah, that's imagine living on that.
And they
And
get
they've
those high.
actually been moving out there again. This place was abandoned, and apparently people are trying to move out there again.
And they're subject to high winds, severe storms, and stuff like we've seen on a lot of the
Oh yeah,
shows, right? So I mean, oh wow, that just, and then of course on the side of a hill or mountain like that, mudslides and everything else, you know.
yeah. Ocean's right below that,
Mm.
so you can imagine how dangerous that is.
Yeah, especially right off the ocean. Yeah.
But yeah, it
Mm.
was abandoned, and now the native population is trying to move back out there. Well, over here in Nome, this is where, if you've ever seen the classic North to Alaska John Wayne film, this is where the film is supposed to be taking place, is within this region. And you might be familiar with the song from
Yeah.
Johnny Horton
Yep.
that's talking about the song North to Alaska.
Yep.
It talks about them being at an old white mountain just a little southeast of Nome. Well, a little southeast of Nome is actually would end up being somewhere over here. So it's
Right.
not quite a little southeast of Nome. It's actually quite a distance. So it's like the musician didn't quite understand where Nome was. It'd be probably northeast of Nome. Would probably have made a lot more sense.
All right. You know, at that point, they're going for rhymes and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
But so this whole region is started really having an up and coming boom, and then once the gold kind of dried up, a lot of people left. But you still find a lot of people living in Nome. If you ever seen the film Balto or know the story of Balto, that also takes place in Nome.
Hmm.
Fascinating story of one of the most impressive rescue missions I personally think of the modern age. So they use dog sleds to try and get medicine back to Nome. One of the most impressive feats in terms of trying to get immediate aid across a wilderness that I ever really heard of. Still, we commemorate that journey with the Iditarod every year, which takes place in February. So we have our dog sled race, which actually it ended a couple of weeks ago. And sometimes they will use little tiny dogs, and other times they will use like what look like wolfhounds because they're so big. It all depends upon how much snow is in the interior. Ideally, you want a smaller dog because it is easier to manage, doesn't cost as much in terms of food. But when you have to deal with real deep winter, you want a big dog, something that will be able to deal with that harsh environment. And these dogs love to run. You can't keep these dogs off the sleds. And so it's a very much a part of Alaskan history. A lot of nations are starting to participate in the races, and it all revolves around this town as the final destination.
Yeah, and we've all heard about that. I mean, one of the most famous things out there. So,
Mm-hmm.
how long? How? When did that race start? How long has it been going on?
The Iditarod, second, it's been going on for a long time. But I remember it was like it went on pause uh, for a while. Right now, it says that it was established in 1973, so it's been going on for
Hmm.
about 50 years.
Yeah.
Uh, and that actual journey, though, that took place was in the early 1900s.
Mm, right. Yeah. And like Valzette says, very beautiful, gorgeous dogs too. Very
Absolutely.
gorgeous. Yep.
So this area is
Hmm.
actually they're trying to build a road. Well, some people say that they try and build a road, and then they'll start and they'll stop, and kind of changes with each change of government. They'll promise trying to get the road system over here to connect with the rest of the state, and it's difficult. If you want to travel around the state, you really got to do it by plane. Uh,
Oh wow.
and
Okay.
actually, plane is like the number one mode of transportation around here, and a very common sight when you're traveling around the town is to see somebody taking their plane out to get it like maintenance put onto it, or get it fueled up and swapped out some gear, repair damages. And you'll notice typical Alaskans, they got duct tape holding the plane together.
Oh, we love duct tape. Oh my gosh. Hey, they make great Floridians. We've held our vans together with duct tape before, so hey,
Mhm.
that's cool to see.
Alaska lives by duct tape. It is everywhere.
Duct tape
Um,
is man's greatest friend.
it is pretty
Actually,
good.
did you talk about the travel issue? See, I do audit work, and the missus actually has told me before that I need to just go and become a state auditor for Alaska. It's, it's like, oh
Uh,
my gosh, I guess there would be some extended trips there if you got moved from city to city. But yeah, it's a beautiful country. I just beautiful state, and from what we've seen, just I mean, just looking at the physical challenges though for getting around. Do you have many helicopters? I know you said planes, but
Helicopters are a hit or miss.
yeah,
I do not feel safe traveling in a helicopter around here.
mm,
We have some of the worst weather in the world.
right.
Um, the Alaska Airlines trains their pilots up here because they're in their mentality. If they can fly in the worst conditions of Alaska, they can fly in any conditions anywhere else.
Hmm.
But yeah, it is very dangerous up here in terms of flight. And so you will hear about planes crashing all the time. And that is unfortunately a part of that mode of transportation.
Yeah.
But helicopters far more dangerous. You'll pretty much see it isolated to certain regions. Kodiak has um, Coast Guard helicopters. Those are much more durable,
Right.
and so they have a much longer range. But typically, you're not going to see the average person using a helicopter. They're going to use the cheap planes that they can find, but that are actually proven to be quite durable for traveling into the interior.
Okay. Well,
Now, there is an area over here that
okay.
there is almost no other option
Yeah.
to try
Oh
and
yeah.
travel, because right here, the little town of Diomede,
Hmm.
this is their landing pad.
Wow.
That so if the ocean isn't frozen over, they can't fly a plane in. So that means that they have to transport by helicopter only. And
Yep.
that town, that this thing is a difficult spot to build on. They've maximized almost every square inch of this place
It looks like a
just to live
bowl.
there.
The middle is like a bowl down in at all the edges on that, and then
Mm-hmm.
So, let me give you a chance to catch your breath a little bit because like I said, this crazy chat. You bring up duct tape. Balzat's talking about perfect area for flying cars. The missus chimes in duct tape and zip ties. LOL. Yeah, we got a zip tie. That's a long story. Snortopoopas had a friend who kept an old Camaro together with duct tape and Bondo. Absolutely. And welcome, Atwood. Hey, welcome in. Glad to see you here tonight, Atwood. And then uh, Snortopoopa says helicopters don't fly, they just beat the air into submission. So, hey, that's too funny, Snortopoopas. So, yeah, I can see how that's the only way because really you don't have a flat area enough to land a plane or anything. So, unless you had a Harrier jet, you know, about the only way you could vertically land would be with a helicopter. Oh, and by the way, is that a collapsed? Bow's that's asking, is that a collapsed dead volcano?
Actually, no. And now this is where to go into this would take too much time.
Okay.
So I did actually work with at a doing media for an Arctic research group, and so that's partially why I'm so familiar with this area. I had to do a little bit of research onto this area, and it's strange because this whole region is very shallow in terms of what the ocean is like. And you have these regions that are basically these plateaus reaching up out of the ocean. And they're not the only ones. There's another spot over here as well. There are a couple theories what happened.
Mm-hmm.
The theory that I most agree with actually reaches back to something that Captain Cook said when he journeyed up north. He said he came across a wall of ice that reached above the mast of the ship. Basically, it was a transcontinental glacier that was there.
Hmm.
When that glacier collapsed and melted and slid into the ocean, it took all the soil with it and left a couple of high rises. And my theory is that it actually is partially the reason why there's this fan up here, out in the Arctic, because all the water would have been come through here in a current and would have just spit everything out. That's the theory that I side with. Now there are other theories what happened, but that's why we believe. That's one of the reasons why we believe this is indeed the case. And by the way, there is an interesting another story which I won't necessarily dive into, but there were two villages here. There's one here on Little Diomede, and also one on Big Diomede. The big one is
Mm-hmm.
owned by Russia, the little one owned by the US. This is the area where you can literally see Russia from your front porch.
Okay.
But this area, the village is gone. The families that were tied between here, they have yet to actually find out where the Russians took them. They're gone. So, a big mystery what
How long ago
transpired
did that happen? How long ago was that?
during the Cold War.
During the Cold War. Wow.
So, still within living memory.
Hmm.
But actually, it happened to a lot of the native populations. Over here, you have all these villages that we still have around here. None of that exists over here. They're all gone. Some of them, there's only like there's a very small number that even still exist. So we got no idea. But speaking of villages, there is an area up here that recently got renamed. This is Barrow, Alaska. The
Okay.
new kids call it Uktiavik.
Okay.
The old generation doesn't like it, and so there's the contrast between what what the older generation wants and the new generation.
Hello, Jeremy. Welcome. Those darn kids,
Yeah, well, the kids wanted something that sounded more native,
Mhm.
and the older generation's like, well, we've always called it Barrow. Why would we change the name now?
Yeah.
But so there's the difference. Up here, though, it's still not completely frozen over.
Mhm.
This is the Arctic, like actually the Arctic, and you have ice galore at some times of the year, and other
Mhm.
times it is perfectly clear. This ice pack, which I saw when I was up there, disappeared later on that same day as the tide took it out. So
Mm-hmm.
it was open ocean. And then during the evening, it came back and just kept going out and back all throughout that week. There's a lot of tundra around there. By the way, don't go roaming around on the tundra without a weapon. And I'm talking a high powered weapon because this
Mm-hmm.
is where polar bears live. And
All
if you see a
right.
polar bear, you are on the menu.
Snortopoopas agree with that. I know.
Yep.
Oh, yeah,
So the group that
absolutely.
I went out with had a giant rifle with us, and they gave it to the guy that was the most senior and the most steady with a hand. And it was kind of the joke of, well, you better make sure you hit it right, because if you've ever heard like people that hunt bears,
Mm-hmm.
they are built like a tank. If you hit it the wrong way, the bullet will graze along the skull and not hurt the animal. So,
Oh yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
dangerous. And a chest shot doesn't do much better. They have big plates for the ribs. So,
Oh gosh, wow.
yeah, it's very dangerous. So, you want to have a high powered weapon. You want to have good accuracy, because if you miss, that's it.
They're coming for you.
There's a lot of birds out there, big
Mm-hmm.
nesting area in that whole region, and some nests that are a bit more unique. This right here is a common sight along the coastline. The natives will take the whale skulls and put them out there as decoration. And
Oh,
sometimes you find out those whales are a bit of a bird brain, as the cavity ends up being a perfect spot for nests.
yes, nest. Yeah, I guess the birds are really territorial too. I'm sure. Sure, the mama
Mhm.
birds and stuff. You got to watch out. Hey, Snortopoopas had to jump in real quick. You know about having a hard head. It's not just the chest for those bears, but he just wants to cuddle. That's all. That's all. Oh, thank
Yeah,
you.
I'm sure of that.
Thank you to all 13 of y'all that are here with us. It's Alaska Jeff showing us a great spot of Alaska I know I've never seen, and love to see the nature, and the geography has just been amazing, Jeff. So I'll
Mhm.
let you keep going. Yeah. Wow, that's
Well,
neat.
also, just so you know, I literally could go on for hours. So whenever you need me to pause,
Yeah.
say it,
Well,
because otherwise I
well,
will get distracted with the stuff.
you go ahead for a couple more minutes, and then we'll jump over to a little bit of Fortnite talk and talk a little bit about that. But I didn't want to cut you off in that geography because I love maps. I love stuff like that.
Mhm.
The point Batu and Kiska because of World War II, obviously, and you know that they were part of. Well, as I'm learning, the whole difference between Midway and then that operation was two different operations, not a feint, but you know, you see the two U.S. possessions or territories. Well, this was you know considered you know actually Japanese invasion during the war, but yeah, and then they had to go back to fight on those islands. You know, island hopping in World War II was bad enough already, and the volcanic islands that were flat in the in the Central Pacific, but up there with those mountainous. I mean, those seem like they're more mountainous type of
Mhm.
islands. I mean, I couldn't imagine what it'd be like. Well, one, if you had the misery of getting stationed there, and then two, much less attacking it. You know, having to fight on those type of
If I
terrain.
remember right, they lost more planes to the weather than to the enemy.
This very likely. Yep, that's very likely to happen. Yeah. Hey, Hall, Jeff is great. I love it. Jeff and I could talk forever. I think this. My wife says the same thing about me at times. So, but yeah, that's one of the things that I've, like I said, Atu and Kisco with the connection with the history. We've got 14 people with us. It's like it's growing, Jeff. Let's keep going. Uh, so
Well,
we've
here's
gone to the north part.
another
Yeah.
bear.
Okay.
So we mentioned about the polar bear. That's a dangerous bear, not one I ever want to encounter, except at a zoo where there is plexiglass and steel bars protecting you. But there's another bear that is far more common, and that's the grizzly.
Ah.
Now, for
Yeah.
the most part, grizzlies are fairly benign. They want salmon, they want berries, they want grubs. They will eat moose at the start of the year once they come out of hibernation, but for the
Mm-hmm.
most part, they're as long as you don't startle them, they're not a danger to you. Now, sometimes you'll get a bear that will have like a desire to want to, maul you and turn you into dinner. But for the most part, they're just happy chilling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Such goofy creatures.
Yeah.
But there's another type of bear around here. Oh, by the way, grizzly bears can be incredibly dangerous. Don't go messing with them if you have a choice. But like there's a time where I was on the river and turned around and there's a grizzly bear walking right by us. And just no big deal. Yeah, you guys are fishing. I'm going to go fishing too. Just moseys on down the way. Now, if you have a fish, better surrender it to that bear immediately. You are not going to keep it, and it will make sure you don't keep it.
Right. Just give up the fish. Hand over the fish. I think Snortopoopas agrees with that. And yes, Miss is definitely not like cocaine bear. And Balsat had raised this before. I guess polar grizzly mix. I mean, do the two animals? I mean, there's the same species. I guess that would be in bears. I guess polars and grizzlies could mix.
Yes,
do y'all see a lot of those up there?
Not often, but there have been reports of that. And there's another bear. I won't dive into this one. This is a bit of a more of a cryptid sort of thing, but there's stories of some giant bears, like really giant bears that have been spotted. One that was shot and was sent back to for a DNA analysis back at DC, and the paw was like twice as big as any other bear we've ever seen.
Wow.
Bigger than a polar bear by a long shot, which makes us wonder, is it a normal bear or is it a crossbreed that would have happened from polar bear and grizzly? Or is it a crossbreed between a grizzly and a short-faced bear? It's a big mystery. But yeah, so that gets us to some suspicious stuff that is for another time.
Mm-hmm.
Here's something that you'll sometimes see out in the wild. That's a black bear sleeping.
Oh, wow.
Up in a
tree. In the tree.
Oh, the reason why they do that keeps them far away from this bear. Well, by the way, don't think that climbing a tree is going to help you escape from a brown bear. If it wants you, it will get you. It will knock the tree down, or it will climb the tree, which there's footage of that, and they will shear off all the branches trying to get to you.
That is, well, I Jeff, I don't mean to, and that's cool, and that's good to know that, but like the miss said, like, yeah, that same thing happened. They went up the trees thinking they were safe, and no, yeah. So yeah, you're right. Oh, just a little
this bear is entertained playing with his food. He wanted to put it on his foot for some weird reason. Magpie is in the background over here, just waiting for the bear to kind of throw away some scraps, because obviously the bear wasn't eating it. He just wanted to play with it.
Oh, play with your food.
But yeah, so those are some interesting creatures up here.
That's
one of the most common sights around here. Moose. Moose love to visit the area. And so you're driving along, you just see a moose that's just meandering on his way. Sometimes you'll see a bear going through your neighborhood.
Right.
So be careful. And by the way, this is the middle of the night during the day.
Gosh.
So yeah, so it's like 2 a.m. and the sun is still out.
Yeah.
And this
I
is
thought Cincinnati was bad. Yeah, I thought Cincinnati was bad, but yeah, I guess y'all have to live with a lot of blackout curtains and stuff.
Yeah. It's not that bad, honestly, once you get used to it.
Well, I got to ask you this question too, going back to the houses real quick, and I'll get something out of the chat in this next picture. But if you go back to the house a second, we talk about how it's not always as cold as it seems, but it does get cold up there and it gets hot. Do y'all have central heat and air in the houses, or how do y'all keep the houses cool or hot, or is it gas? Is it electric? A combination?
Gas is common, electric as well. We don't really have central, but for the most part, Alaska is in the middle of a transition, trying to make things a bit more centralized. Part of the reason why it's been difficult is that houses were so far apart. Now we're starting to get a housing grid that's taking place. And so neighborhoods are becoming more modernized. But there are some areas where you still have. There's a lot of places in Alaska where it's still stove heated.
Okay.
Electric is common these days, but also insulation is huge. So if
Mm-hmm.
you have good insulation, you're in the clear.
Okay.
But
Well,
yeah,
that's cool. Yeah. Well, Snort Poopa said, always give the bear the fish.
absolutely.
And reminds me of Without a Paddle. Mrs. said, amazed how big the moose are. And then Snort Poopa says, but on the other paw, you get some very dark days too. Love you
Yep.
guys. Y'all are awesome. So, all right. So, what do we have here? We have a moose, and what are
And
the?
2 calves.
Oh, the moose
So
calves.
twins.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So moose will move in to the towns and cities because they know the bear won't follow them. They'll move in, have their calves, and they will live in your neighborhood for a while. And then when they're of a substantial age, then they will actually leave and go back into the interior. There was a Lowe's. Actually, let me see if I can pull up this image. I didn't save it. So
Yeah. So, and the moose, a female moose have antlers, or the male moose
no,
have antlers? Okay. So the male, is that how you pretty much to tell if they're male or female?
for the most part.
Okay.
So a couple of years ago, when I was working on the TV station, suddenly the station blew up. It's like, oh, we got to quick drop every story. There's another moose story because Alaskans will drop every other news story just because there's moose.
Right.
Well, the reason why this one took everyone's attention was because what ended up happening was a moose went over to a Lowe's parking lot and had a calf on the front lawn. And so it's this big parking lot that the moose just decided, hey, you know what? This is going to be a safe spot for a little junior. And so we just went out there. Everyone was there at the Lowe's parking lot, and the moose felt comfortable and safe. And so the
Wow.
calf spent his first week or two in the Lowe's parking lot. And
Wow.
they sectioned off the area because they didn't want to mess with the moose. And the moose know that people, for the most part, won't mess with them, and so they do feel comfortable and safe with that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's fun. It's more of it's a great tourist attraction. Go and see the moose.
Yeah, that's better than having this silly Canada geese taking over your parking lot and then chasing you down when they get cranky.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's nice though. But yeah,
but do not mess with the moose.
Nope.
There was a woman on our in our neighborhood that got trampled because she was not being careful with the moose.
Yep.
She did recover, but they are dangerous.
Absolutely.
But they will not mess with you. It kind of like a bear. Don't mess with the young. If you mess with the young, then you're asking for trouble. And sometimes you don't know where the moose's young are, and that's why you have to keep your head on a swivel, because there might be a calf in the area. Just make sure you don't get between the moose and the calf, and you'll be in the clear.
Absolutely. I made that mistake with a Canada geese one time, and it was like I knew I got back in the building in time, but it's any mama bear, cub or whatever, you're going to have that situation. But I don't like the Canada geese. They're really cranky. But these moose, they're cute. But like you said, take them seriously and don't forget. And like the missus says, sometimes people forget that they are wild animals. So, yep, absolutely.
Yep. Doesn't help that we have a farm up here that has a moose, and one of their things you can pay and go do is go up and kiss a moose.
Oh gosh.
So you hear things like that, and then you see people like messing with moose in real life. It's like, yeah. That's probably not a good thing to do.
That's too funny. That is hilarious. Yeah. Oh,
we also have very big coyotes.
Oh, coyotes. Okay.
So they look like wolves. They are so big.
Wow. Yeah. Because we actually have coyotes with the development down here where they're stripping everything down and taking away the habitats and stuff. We have coyotes that have run through our neighborhood before, and they are not that big. They were tiny looking things compared to that. That's why I thought at first it was a wolf, though.
yeah, they get massive up here, and but you do have wolves as well. So you have these two creatures that are living side by side. The only way you can really tell it that there's a difference is wolves will stay in the pack, coyotes will go off on their own. So there was one time where I was looking out the window. The dog at my parents' house was freaking out, and this was shortly after I moved up here. And I woke up, heard the dog kind of freaking out, and went upstairs, and the dog went quiet and was just looking outside. And as I'm looking out into the darkness, this was the early days of winter, so it was very, very dark. And I see these two silhouettes go running down the road. They look like coyotes, but they're the size of wolves. And I because they're silhouettes, I couldn't quite tell. It was scrawny like a coyote, but had the height of a wolf.
Yeah.
They ran by a car, so I could actually get a comparison of the height. And let's just say if they were, whether it was wolves or coyotes, these two were massive. Where's their shoulders went up to the rear view mirror on a car, which is about like 25% larger than any normal sized wolf. So that just went running through our neighborhood.
Wow, that's big. Oh my goodness. So hey, that is awesome. And we got more. Is that what is that? Is that not a
porcupine?
That is a porcupine. Okay. Hey. Yeah, hearing a pack of coyotes communicating can be very eerie. Yes, actually, last weekend, and hey, we got. Thank you to everybody that's still here. We got 13 people. Thank you for being here. Make sure you follow on Twitch and like and subscribe on YouTube. But thanks for hanging out with Jeff and me tonight. This has been fabulous, Jeff. But like the missus says here, a pack of coyotes. Last weekend we were over in the Panhandle of Florida, more in the country, and my brother-in-law took me out and showed me. Didn't show me that then, but we could hear them. They were not far away. They were on the other side of the fence line. He actually said if we went out there with a headlamp, you'd see their eyes reflecting. So that is a very eerie sound to hear.
So I got an interesting image for you to take a look at.
Okay.
So right here, you'll see that the stripped bark off of a tree. This is the result of a porcupine.
Wow.
You will find trees that are stripped bare in many areas, just like this. And the telltale signs are little tiny parallel markings from the teeth. And that's what porcupines will eat many times. They will also eat moose antlers as well. So it's kind of strange. You have to be careful. You don't leave moose antlers on the ground. If you want to take one, it will not be there after a couple of days. The porcupine will eat it.
Wow. Okay. Man, vicious little things.
Yeah. But beavers. This right here is not porcupine.
Okay. That looks like an animal.
This is a bear.
Okay. Yeah.
So you notice there's a slight difference. Well, if you're going through the woods and you see these things, look for the parallel markings, because if you just pass this one, get out of there. Bear. If you see this, look out for the porcupine.
Absolutely. I guess y'all have beavers up there too.
Yes.
Are they very active at certain times of year damming up things, or do you see markings like you do with the porcupines? Because I'm not used to seeing wild porcupines. Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. You'll find beavers up here in Alaska. Actually, a good place to find them that is nearby Anchorage. There's a couple of regions, but the closest I can think about is back here in Chukiak State Park. You actually have this river right here is dammed up by a couple of beavers, and beavers do go in families. So all these beavers will basically be related in one way or another. And when the young get older, they will usually travel down the river and find new beaver families. So there'll be like beavers down here that will travel up north and we'll meet with beaver families up here. So they become very they will basically dam up things as a family group, and they will have different lodges sometimes.
Oh,
But yeah,
wow.
this is a good place to see beavers up here. And so if you're up in up in the Anchorage area, that's the closest spot you can go and see beavers.
Wow. That's cool. All right. Well, that's awesome, Jeff. Thank you for sharing so much. And maybe another night we'll come back and do a little bit more. You know what I mean? It sounds like you got a lot more to share with
Well,
the
that's
state of
probably a good
Alaska.
stopping point, going
Yeah.
over some of the geography, some of the
Yeah.
regions, some of the animals. Because again, literally, I could go on for a long time with this. I have
Absolutely.
relatives that teach this stuff all the time, so basically, we got that benefit of just kind of
It's just,
basically being
that's,
taught from an early age about all the ins and outs of Alaska. And then, of course, working at the TV station for a while, I learned a lot more with it. So I'll
ah,
stop sharing the screen now.
okay. Oh, yeah. Well, it's funny you mentioned work for TV station. Mrs. used to work for TV station before we got married. In the first couple of years when we were married, was actually in the engineering department. So, you know, and yeah, like she said, this is fascinating. It truly, truly is, and it has been a wonderful, fun time. I mean, I think probably at least well over an hour just on this section. So let's. But yeah, I think, like I said, I think it's interesting your TV background because she tells me about things from the TV days and production, and that's a lot of the reason why you see the high quality graphics here and stuff like that is because she's a professional with doing that kind of stuff, and she only wants it to look good. So I brag on her. She tells me to stop, but I got to brag on her because like I said, I can't afford her even in Amazon. But hey, oh, but Jeff, let's talk about Fortnite a little bit. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
let's switch up gears. I know there's a few people out here that are in chat that watch Fortnite too, and or play Fortnite. Others don't. They watch but play Fortnite. How long have you been playing Fortnite? Um, and then how long have you been streaming Fortnite?
I started almost exactly a year ago, um, because it was kind of part of the responsibility of the employment that I had, and working with streamers. And so I was working with streamers, and so I started playing it because that was a good way to engage with them. And afterwards, I was like, hey, people still want to see this, so I started streaming that as in parallel with the Red Dead Redemption
Mm-hmm.
streams. And I've tried moving on to other ones, but it seems to be the most lighthearted and easy one to kind of work with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it would have been a year ago for first getting started. It would have been about 5 months ago since I actually started doing it dedicated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
But I do not go around blowing up all the gas stations the way that you
it's
do.
okay.
I don't have a vendetta.
A vendetta, I guess. Yeah, I guess that's a way to put it. Uh, they that just kind of happened. I had dumpster dive before that. Let me see. Bowsette says there's a Russian channel somewhere on YouTube. The lady went to a petting zoo. Basically, the porcupine there was so docile it was trying to lay on people while getting petted and fed. Wow, that is
Porcupine
something.
getting petted and fed. That's dangerous.
I know. I was like, that's some trust there. So that's awesome with that. Yeah, I shared my story with you about how I got into it, how I got the name. The I've been playing since 2020. Obviously, what I knew early on when I would stream, it would be football and Fortnite, big things. Um, but what I found is Fortnite is really, like you said, it's a fun, easy game to stream. There are other games I played, but either I get when I go through StreamYard, like the Accident Allies or Ticket to Ride, I got to set up StreamYard. I got to do a lot of different things. When as Fortnite, I can just hit the PS4 and go.
Hmm.
Uh, I got some other games that I played some Atari retro games, some Pac-Man games that I want to play more lately, but I've kind of been stuck in the thing for Fortnite. And I'll be honest, a lot of times Fortnite brings more viewers at times, and you know, at least it seems that way. So, but I tell you what, I've also gotten with Fortnite is I don't like to play by myself anymore.
Yeah.
If I stream and stream alone, well, like I have one where I Dadman tours the island, I can do it like in that, but off air, I can't play solo because I get too grumpy. And it's a game I like to have fun with and keep the joy in it. And that's one of the reasons why I took up blowing up gas stations was to, hey, let's have some fun with it. And it's kind of become a thing. And I took out a dumpster the other day, even though I was taking out the gas station once. So how that goes. It just was kind of, and somebody's like, you should count that as a blowing up a gas station. I was like, yeah, I always say I pruned the building or I pruned the dumpsters. So, but this season, how do you like the season so far? A little bit different because what got me with this season was the geography of the island, especially trying to drive.
So I like this one a lot. I very much like the sword. I much rather prefer the hammer, just because of the humor that comes about with it, and it's a dynamic that I do enjoy. But the sword's like the next best thing that they've made, and I really like the territory. The territory is far better than just about anything else Fortnite has made. But maybe I'm biased because I lived in Japan for a while, and I've always been fascinated with that country.
Mm-hmm.
And so to see it kind of realized in that sense, they did a good job at it, and I'm very much appreciated to see that addition. I personally still wish that they had the map uh, from before the Chrome took place. The Chrome, I think, was when I stopped liking the island as much, and then when it changed completely, I wasn't as much of a fan. This is the first time I've actually liked the improvements that they've added, and I hope that they keep adding to it in the same way of adding more culture to the island, adding more locations to kind of go to. I felt like the last one had too few locations to go to, and this one has a much better amount. And I hope that
Mm-hmm.
they extend the island's overall size. This one did
Mm-hmm.
extend the island a little bit. I want to see it even bigger in the future. So if they can take this region and apply it to other ones moving forward, I will be happy.
Absolutely, absolutely. I thought it was neat seeing the very beginning of it. I knew like my wife was going to like it with that whole background, and of course it gives me a great background for my pink unicorn to blend into all those city lights and stuff. It's it was fabulous for me because I love playing with the pink unicorn, Fabio Sparkle Bud, I call him. So you know, it's everybody gives me grief about the pink unicorn, but I know the song. Listen. Somebody, one of my guys in my chat sent me the words to it. Jess has sent me the words too, and I'm actually trying to learn all the songs on all three verses to
Oh
actually
no.
entertain people. It's like. It's like, and I'm even. It's a party in my hoof. So it's like I don't know. That's the fun stuff with this. That with the game that I like to keep going. Find different things to have fun with it, so it doesn't get stale. Um, because I tell you, the first year or so, I was playing solos to 4 o'clock in the morning, and and it eventually burned out at that point. And I just got to where I started playing with people, and I liked playing. I like playing with people, and it's so like I said, is I get grumpy sometimes when I'm in solos, and that's never a good thing. But yeah, it's what I like too with the game is that it does lean itself to a team game, where you can just do silly stuff with your friends and just you can be as silly or as serious as you want to be with it, and you know it just it's fun. You get to chat with people. The social interaction is always good. So Balzette said she's had layovers in Tokyo twice, and Mrs. says I love the landscape of the new island and the detail and locations. Yeah, I knew you. I knew you would. There's Snortopoopas, that damn unicorn. They're magical and they're delicious. Get unicorn flakes. Sorry. Anyway, but hey, I'm getting those words down. So we got 15 people here still with us, Jeff. Thank you for everybody that's come through. If you're on the Twitch side, make sure you follow. We're at 80. We're trying to get to 100. On the YouTube side, smash that like button. And we're trying to need 7 more to 200. We're just trying to get there. Why? Just because I'm obsessed with round numbers. The missus is like, you're doing numbers again. But, the personality in me, it just, there's something about, one's like 150, then 150 gets to 175, and then you're at 190. Got to get 200. Got to get that even 100. It just it was hilarious. Oh my gosh! See, and the missus now chiming in with it. Dadman, Pink Unicorn plus evil equals pure evil. Now here's a game I've not played. I've heard a lot about this. Bowsette used to play the heck out of Dauntless, but there's literally only one developer working on the game now. So it's, I guess, becomes stale. I guess, that's the thing is too, with the Fortnite, they do the periodic updates from time to time to do this. Not if season to season may not be a lot of variability or big challenges, but like when they change chapters, I mean, the whole island flipped over. Do you like that with a game when it constantly updates and it's, kind of changes into something else?
So I worked primarily in the world of graphics, entertainment, and communication as a whole. And one thing that I've learned is that you always want to have things changing, even if they're not good changes. You want to have things changing because you don't want people to become more or less lazy and have routine.
Mm-hmm.
You always need something to shake up an audience base. Now, some companies, I personally think, take it to the extreme. They know this philosophy. They don't really tell people that they're going by it, but they act on it, and we all see the consequences of it. Sometimes it is good. Sometimes it's detrimental.
Mm-hmm.
I think that Fortnite has found a good balance of where they add brand new things, because what it does is I think they figured this out back when Fortnite added the no build, because their player base skyrocketed. And I think right now Rocket League is about ready to do the same. They kind of realize that this is something that's going on, that people do want to have more variety. And it's kind of like the idea of that you could play you can play the same game to perfection. You can become so routine, you can basically go onto autopilot. And actually, I remember hearing Ninja saying that on an interview once. Ninja, when he was doing Fortnite, is saying, "I'm just on autopilot." He doesn't even think anymore. His brain is just instantly doing things based upon what his eyes are detecting. His brain automatically does it without him even having to think about it.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually a bit of a terrifying experience, at least for me. I cannot imagine kind of losing yourself and going on to autopilot. And so I've always been of the philosophy that you want something to break up the routine, break up the monotony, make it new and challenging.
Mm-hmm.
So even if I'm not happy with all the changes, I like it when they add something that causes my brain to get out of a rut. So I think they're doing it very well. And I think a lot of companies are watching it and kind of learning how to change their game with that same mentality.
Right. Yeah. It's like I said, I nearly burned out at one point with so many solo matches at the same time with the same thing over and over again. And you do hit boredom, and trying to keep it fresh is a good, it grows the game, grows the base. I like your point about no builds. I mean, the missus started with builds and she could function, but when no builds came in, it made it more fun and a lot more enjoyable. So that's one thing you didn't have to focus on, because not everybody wants to have to build and stuff like that. And I think that's, like you said, grow the game. Yeah, absolutely. So put something there for you, Jeff. And then let's see here. Yeah, let's see. The Nintendo Switch, Bowsette's put over 2,000 hours in Dauntless. Wow. And then, of course, all the different games. Terrible port for Switch. PS4 has numerous glitches. PS5 sometimes won't let you squat up too. Wow. Yeah, I know. And I think she may be talking about Fortnite with that one. So, because I know I've had a lot of problems. The last few of my streams have had problems with fuzziness and kind of just things being odd a little bit. So it's and glitching. I've had glitching lately that's I've not had until just recently. Now I'm wireless, could always be that, but I've not had problems. So who knows what that is. So
so
Atwood,
you're having glitching now in the game?
mm-hmm, yeah,
Interesting. Yeah, because that's what plagued me from about October to to start of February. It was so painful, and now I don't have glitching anymore.
oh
But
yeah,
I'm on the PC side, and so PC was plagued for a long time, and now it's finally got fixed.
yeah. Okay, thank you for clarifying that. Yeah, Bowsette. And Atwood played Dauntless. The developer thing killed it for him. That's why he just plays Fortnite, Destiny 2, and Mortal Kombat. So mainly Destiny 2 and Fortnite. And the missus right there said after they added no build, I enjoyed playing the game so much more. Oh, okay. And Bowsette, I'm skipping one for a second. Dadman, Dauntless was basically Monster Hunter with a bunch of extra crap to deal with. And Snorta Poopa says, Dadman will never get bored as long as there are gas stations to blow up. Oh, that is awesome. And then Hall saying, just don't ask Jeff about some of the skins, especially the Rick and Morty skins. Uh-oh. Jeff, so what about the skins? Are there some that you really love or you really don't love?
Rick and Morty as a whole needs to burn with fire and be thrown into some sort of acetone to make sure that the ink is never seen again by human eyes.
Wow.
So I am someone who is, like I said earlier, I am an artist and I'm an animator. The animation and art style, the story of the Rick and Morty genre is painful to me for a variety of reasons. But it all goes down to this idea of that I've mentioned to my own community over and over again, which is that art style doesn't have beauty in it. It's designed to be grotesque and to be shocking. And so as an artist, I can't appreciate it even in the slightest. So when I see it, it's like that needs to disappear because we need real art, not this abomination.
Oh, gosh. Well, hey, I tell you, it's beauty in the eye of the beholder. Some people like it, some may not. But yeah, definitely. And hey, I got to say hello to the great Squeaka Mouse coming in. Hello, Squeaka. Thanks for being here. Glad you're here. Hopefully you got to hear some of the great stuff about Alaska too. And Fortnite, what's that? Yeah, exactly. Oh my gosh. So, but yeah, it's folks, I just put out here the Mrs. said, Alaska Jeff, please tell us how you really feel about Rick and Morty. Well, you do have a company there with Bowsette, so and here's Jeff's links out here. Like I said earlier, he's on Twitch, Alaska Man Jeff. No, I did it twice. That's right. Anyway, the Caster Craft, there's a link there. And also we have a link to Jeff's Alaska Jeff YouTube channel up here. So make sure you go support him. He's been a great guy, great helper. Wonderful. Like I said earlier, the X and Allies, we'll have to do something with X and Allies one day soon, I think. Definitely. So, oh gosh, Bowsette's on Adventure Time too. I guess that's another one.
So actually, if you don't mind, I'd like to just mention a little bit.
Yeah, go ahead.
I won't dive into the full backstory of art and animation. I did 3 sessions of it, and I barely even scratched the surface of all that I wanted to go over. So that was about 6 hours in total. So we're talking literally like between 6 and 10 hours that I could literally talk about animation as a whole.
Wow.
But when it comes to a lot of modern animation, back in the late 90s, they were trying to find a cheaper way to make animation. We had just come out of the Disney Renaissance. We had seen television animation really taking off, and companies were trying to find something to try and add more shock value. They wanted to do darker tones in their stories, and they realized they couldn't do that with the same traditional animation. So they decided to resort to this new upcoming style, which was basically the same equivalent of doing Picasso art when that came around. It was designed to shock and startle and honestly be the opposite of beauty. And so that definitely achieved the desired effect, but it had like some very negative fallouts, and we don't really see that art style being pushed as much as it once was, because what they did was they killed the American animation industry, and thus animation started traveling to Japan. And now anime is the one that has replaced animation as a whole. People, when you think of animation, you don't think of things like Adventure Time or Rick and Morty. You think about anime for the most part, because they have won the competition in that sense. Americans threw away all the progress we had in art and animation in order to try and shock people. Animators got fired. They ended up going with a whole new direction and they realized that it didn't connect with audiences the way that they wanted, and they destroyed an industry. Am I passionate about it? Yes. Why? Because I was trying to get into it and they killed it. So I realized I couldn't go anywhere. So I very much have a very deep passion against that art style for a variety of reasons.
Well, I think the missus is asking this question: was it faster to create?
Yes, tremendously. And actually, it goes down to something, a fascinating thing. The more grotesque your illustrations are, the easier it is to make. The reason why is you're not spending time perfecting and refining. It's really hard to do things like symmetry, for example. When you're drawing, you have some people are really good at doing good symmetry to the face of someone, or let alone the form. But if you throw that out the window and just focus on doing something generic, that's a lot easier. Well, you don't want to do that for something that's supposed to be beautiful. You want to do it for something that's grotesque, or basically the opposite of beauty, because that's easier to try and do that style with. So whenever they had a chance, they would add in characters that were designed to grate on the eyes, because animation wise it was really, really cheap. We're talking astronomically cheaper compared to anything else that had happened for the majority of the 80s and the 90s. So they introduced that whole genre to save money and ended up losing an industry.
Yeah, that. See, I see, and that's where I think you and I probably will have some disagreements in terms of that, because to me, I can go with the more grotesque looking animation. Heck, I'm I love Beavis and Butthead. It's talking about bad animation styles and stuff like that. I was more about the comedy and how well the story is, at more than the quality of the animation. And I know that I always tore my dad up. He's like, all that college education and that's what you watch. But yeah, I understand your point with that. I tend to give more room for the aesthetics of the art and stuff like that. I kind of enjoy the goofiness, the absurdity of like the animation, and I think it's good for what it does. I mean, and especially when you see that character in that animation killing you in Fortnite, and you're like, damn it, stop it. Not another Rick or Morty skin. I can't even get the two confused straight, but yeah. But it's things like that happen. It's, I mean, everything it says makes technical sense. And I know somebody from a creator standpoint, and when you do the art, because I know you do the art and the stuff, and those are the things that you appreciate. And but that's what's great. That's why I love having you on tonight and have this talk and stuff. We agree on a lot of things. We disagree on some things, but we're just sitting here chilling, and we got 14 people still watching us after 2 hours, Jeff.
And actually,
Yeah.
that kind of goes back to something that I mentioned
Yeah.
to you off stream, which is for the people in my community, one of the big things we keep pressing is this idea of civility,
Yeah.
is that you can have difference of opinions, but you need to always have a civil stance when you're with other people. And that's something we
Mhm.
used to be kind of taught from an early age. Dawn of the internet kind of took that away. And so it's
Mhm.
hard to have disagreements. I think that's partially the reason why the world of politics and culture and entertainment as a whole has become so very divisive, because we forgot how to have um, dialogue in such a way that allows us to kind of find the best
Mhm.
path forward as a group. We can't have even just knowing what it's like somewhere else. Kind of like an example, I was trying to talk to someone about how great Alaska was a couple of years ago, and they didn't want to hear it because all they thought was Alaska's cold and frigid and I don't need to know anything else. It was like, no, there's far more to it. You have to kind of understand like some of the culture up here, maybe some of the climate, the regions to go to. They didn't want to hear it.
Mhm.
Well, in the same way, nowadays we just want to hear one side and we don't even want to have the dialogue. So it's nice to be able to actually have those dialogues, even when it's something that one disagrees with. Like I can't stand sort of animation, but I'm not going to go about and say, "Hey, Dad, man, if you're going to be watching that stuff, I'm not even going to have a dialogue with you." No, we have the ability to have those difference of opinions and to share both sides, so that the person who's viewing tech can actually make a decision for themselves based upon what they hear from all their different sources.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's why I had that's like I said before that that's one of the reasons why I wanted to do this stuff, why I got into the streaming and stuff like that, is to hear from different people and different perspectives. And a lot of times those are the people that I actually like being around more often than the people I agree with, you know, because I can have some nice, fun debates with them and actually learn from them. There's some people that I really have gotten to know that I consider friends that, you know, we at the core don't agree fundamentally and probably never will, but hey, we when it comes to just sitting around chatting or playing Fortnite or whatever, we have a good old time, and it doesn't have to be. And if when we do talk about those issues, I learn, they learn, and a bit of back and forth with that civility, as you said. Because I
Mhm.
think one of the dangers is that I think so many times echo chambers form. And we're always good about
Mhm.
calling the other guy an echo chamber, but we fail to see when we do it, and we get caught up in everybody patting you on the back and agreeing and all this stuff, and it's like it's just kind of like how the mob goes. And personally, I'd rather have somebody call respectfully. You don't want to be embarrassed or whatever. I mean, if I got something wrong, tell me I got it wrong, and I'll fix it. I'm I ask questions all the time. I know I'm wrong half the time, but I ask the questions just to get the right answer. So to see what there
Mhm.
is with stuff, and that's what we're here for, is to have fun together and just try to laugh at too much stress out there and things like that. Oh, let me see. I missed a
Mhm.
couple things in the chat we had right here. Like, let's see, the Bowsette or the balloon animal Thundercats was utter trash. The missus said, but the trade-off is that the animators in Japan are worked to death. And that's something that I've heard, is that the animation and some of the anime, is really hard on the people that have to actually do the animation.
So
Uh,
actually, that gets into it. I won't dive in too deep into this, but this is
okay.
actually one of the reasons why I have such a deep passion for Japan.
Mm-hmm.
Japan as a whole is suffering from something we here in the US are now starting to suffer from, which is uh, becoming um, having life becoming disconnected, and you start to lose hope. Your friends, your family, the deep connections that you once had disappear with the dawn of really the internet, and having this all these connections that are supposed to bring us closer together have actually taken us further apart. Well, we here in the US, we have a couple of balances kind of help prevent that from really causing us to lose hope the same way that Japan has. But I remember when we were in Japan, we'd open up the paper every day, and it would be like another kid ended up in the local area, ended up taking his own life because they were so depressed. So it's true, they're very hard working, and they do take it to the extreme. But at the same time, they also don't have the same level of hope that we have here in the US, which is the
Hmm.
big thing that really hits them hard.
And I take it that Squeak is actually agreeing with that point that you're saying right there too. That, I mean, that's a very important thing, you know. Wow. Yeah, I know I'm on the edge with anime. I don't know a lot about it. The missus is and the kids actually teach me a lot about it. So what they say is and all that, you know. And I could imagine being that kind of industry where you work to that extent, but you know, and like you said, connections are big things. But yeah, man, I tell you what, Jeff, I've learned a lot about this stuff, and thanks to you being here now, you know, it's really it's really cool to hear your passion for these things. You know, whether it's anime, Alaska, you know, everything else that you got. And Jess is back. Hey, Jess.
Greetings, Jess.
Glad to see you two getting along. So happy that you did. We are glad to that. Could you imagine when we pay? We got 16 people now here, Jeff. This is wonderful at 2.5 hours. Can you imagine what we could do with an Axis and Allies match?
Yeah, it's a favorite game of mine. So sometime in the future,
Absolutely.
I'd be willing to give that a shot.
Absolutely. We go. And hey, the Woopa Troopa. Woopa's coming in. And in spite of being a Pokemon, he doesn't know anything about anime. So, hey. Oh
What?
my gosh. What?
Uh,
Yes, but yeah, I mean, it's good to see. I know Squeak agreeing with on that. The missus had that question too. So you know that those are interesting points because we get so focused on everything stateside, we don't realize that there's another world over there, or you know, there's something that started. My background has been, you know, you know, I've only learned stuff in the last 5 years between the missus, some other friends, the kids, because I'm sitting here thinking Battle of the Planets was this awesome 70s show. I grew up, yay, Ray, Ray. And they're like, gotcha, man, Japan before what? And a show. It's like everything I grew up with kids just seemed about had it start overseas in Japan, especially if it's cartoon or anime related, you know. And
mhm.
it's interesting, and this is why you asked why I do this stuff, Jeff, and why I do that. This tonight is the exact reason because I want to learn. I get it's really cool to hear different things and being exposed to different things that I'm not used to. Streams that I've gone and watched in are like comic book streams, art streams. You know, Stunning and Brave was out here. He's got a great art stream too. Earlier, you know, just things like that that I've learned that there's a whole new world out there. There's something bigger than just and forgive me for putting it bluntly, but it's a cheap accountant talking is just drawing or coloring, you know. And I don't like saying it because it cheapens the art. It cheapens the effort and the professionalism it takes to do that stuff and the talent. I mean, to me that's something that I will never have because if you see the what I do draw, I'm worse than a 3 or 5 year old kid drawing, but like I said, there was hearing what you have to say. Those points that you raise are things that I learn from, and that there's a bigger world out there, and I think a lot more people need to understand that because there is a whole new world that's out there that if you just open your horizons and I learned a lot. So. And Balzette says Japan was always on point with animation, but really blew up after being exposed to and partnering with Disney. So, yeah.
There's so much in this world that I wish people would get more curious at times. I feel
Mm-hmm.
like in our culture we get so kind of static. We have
Mm-hmm.
this idea that we want everything to just be about the US. And I know that there are a lot of very patriotic people I know that would say, well, that's all we need to know. And having been a world traveler, it's like, no, there's actually so much we need to know just to better understand kind of how the world works, how people's minds think. even just how our neighbors think, because everybody's going to be so very different. If we keep a healthy study
Hmm.
of the world of culture and geopolitics and things like that, we will find a lot of opportunity to try and make a difference in our corner of the internet, corner of our neighborhood, in a much better way. A good example is when I was I've not really, I don't know if I've actually mentioned this to you, but I did work at Epcot for a short time,
Hmm.
Epcot, Walt Disney World. And when I was there, one of the best experiences I had was working with people from other nations,
Hmm.
because I loved learning from them in on things that I had absolutely no clue about. And I was a world traveler, but I still didn't understand things from their perspective. So I would be talking with people that had completely different views than myself. And I had to sit and listen and learn in a way that I had not really had to for most of my life. And here I
Hmm.
was working with these people, or having to serve them at the parks and help them out, and just learning to appreciate them really on a deeper level of looking past the flags or looking past the cultures and appreciating the person behind that. And once I did that, it's amazing how much how many great experiences I ended up having. I went back to friends or businesses that later on, and kind of try to convey some of those things, and is a real hit or miss. Most people didn't even want anything to do with that sort of approach of kind of appreciating the world, the greater world out there, or the different views that people had. Even if it's like, just learn about it. You don't have to agree with them, just learn about it so you can understand where they come from, maybe understand better how to address some of their concerns in the future, just because you understand their perspective. Much much needed in this world.
Absolutely. And I think some of those lessons I'm learning, and too, as I get exposed to more and more people around the world, being on streams, having them in the chat, playing Fortnite with them, and things like that. It's such a great experience. Well, Jeff, I know we only have a couple minutes left. We still have Tim with us. Thank you, everybody. Make sure you smash that like button. Make sure you follow us on Twitch, and I need to pull up a couple slides to think. But Jeff, why don't you spend a couple minutes talking about yourself, your channel, if you can?
Okay. So I mentioned earlier that I want that I kind of stumbled, well, more or less, I stumbled into this whole world of streaming. I don't know how long this journey is going to last. I want it to last for a while. I don't know how much it's going to impact things moving forward. But what I am trying to focus on is something, you could say it's the grand scheme is to try and break into the world of film and animation. That has been my dream forever. And every time I try to get in, it's been a very difficult task. Well, I decided that this was going to be part of the experiment. I wanted to try and really dive into the world of film and animation. And
Mm-hmm.
so recently I've been putting a lot of my time into building up this other channel. And the idea is to try and make it as as much of a neutral brand as possible. I go right now go by Alaska Jeff, but in the future I want to make more of a focus upon this new channel, which is actually slowly growing a studio um, called Castercraft. Castercraft, basically Latin for beaver craft, is the idea that we want to be hardworking as beavers and be productive,
Mm-hmm.
because there's a lot of places that want to kind of get the fame aspect. There's a lot of places that want to make a whole lot of money. And I want to craft things for the love of the art form, and actually tell stories, tell animations, draw animations. I got some elaborate stories I want to tell one day. I'm not there yet. I hope eventually that
Yep.
through the streaming, it'll help to eventually make that a possibility. But we got our first test animation out last month. And right now I have been working on the second. And there will be a third one coming out shortly thereafter. And the idea is to put more and more effort into the animation side, because we want to start offering I know there's right now it's very trendy to say we want to offer an alternative to mainstream. So I'm not going to say we're offering an alternative. What I am saying is that we are trying to create an art form and an animation that shares common values with um, a more traditional America, Judeo-Christian values, and a focus on family. Those are the three things that we want this to kind of focus on. If it has a chance to succeed and be an alternative, that would be wonderful. But until then, it'll just be there for those that want it as we continue to try and figure out how to actually make this thing work out. On the streaming side, we continue to have community activities. We have a variety of streams that are taking place, both artistic, game related, and whatnot. And as I try and figure out what this other channel is going to look like, I'm going to keep dabbling in both worlds. And then hopefully a more clear vision will happen in the next month. I hope next month. Yeah. And then I can actually say for certain, okay, this is the game plan. This is the path that we're taking. Because until then, right now, this is still a gamble. And I have no idea what the future will hold. I'm grateful to be on the journey that I'm currently on. But I also realize, based upon history, that it's not guaranteed that this path will work out. So I am holding my breath. And we will see what happens.
All right. Well, listen, just put the links in there in the chat. Thank you. On YouTube, Alaska Jeff 4068. The Castercraft link at Castercraft 6919. And of course, you'll find Jeff a lot on Twitch with the art streams and gaming too. Alaska Man Jeff over on Twitch. So, and Jeff, look at this. Only a few minutes left. We got a big sad face.
Oh, poor
Oh my gosh. I tell you what, like I told we came in and we were like, how long we go? We don't know. And like I told you, this happens on these streams. It's like next thing I know, it's 3 hours later, and I know you have to go though. That's why we have to start to wrap up, and I'll say a few things. And then hey, you got Bowsette. Jeff, you got a great voice. She believes you can make a killing doing readings and voice acting. So,
well, that requires a recognition to actually get those positions. So I'm not there yet.
We'll keep working at it.
Much appreciated.
Absolutely. So, folks, if you came in late, go back and check throughout. Go back and see what we talked about, both of our backgrounds, and early in the stream in the first hour at 45 minutes, I guess, and then go back and watch the amazing stuff that Jeff showed from the history, the terrain of Alaska, the Aleutian Islands. It's just amazing to see with his knowledge and stuff like that. Hey, Balzette's sharing an idea. Maybe contact YouTube channel Bedtime Stories. So.
Never heard of them before. Never know.
And then Hawes saying also good for audiobook readings. Hey, there you go. That's awesome. So, hey, well, Jeff, thank you for being here. I'm going to pitch a couple things on the way out the door. I see us doing something again in the future. And if we did 2.5 hours like this, I can only imagine how long we go on a XNLI stream. Oh my gosh.
I'll try not to be super aggressive when that happens.
That's okay. That works. I appreciate that. So I got to move us out of the way. I think I've got us in the thing right there. There we go. And let me get rid of the banner. I'm multitasking. Hopefully I didn't cut Jeff off. You still there?
I'm still here. Can you hear me?
I just try to make sure I don't boomer it every moment to the next. But listen, folks, we had a great night tonight. But hey, join us tomorrow night. The great Whoopa Troopa, man, is an awesome dude. He's a guy like me that likes football and sports out here. Come by and let's talk football tomorrow night and have some fun with it. Ask your questions. We'll teach about football. Whoever, maybe we'll throw a fish your way or something. Who knows, whatever. But we have a lot of fun with it. We're talking the XFL football right now, and the season's coming to a close. Last week was a big upset where the winless team beat the one team that had not lost all season and shocked everybody. So you never know. And we're also planning on spending a few minutes talking about the results from Monday night's men's college championship game between San Diego State, UConn, which pretty well went the way we both said it. He got the point differential, but I got the score closer. So, two great minds thinking. So join us tomorrow night, 7 p.m. on Twitch and YouTube for that. And if you don't like sports, just come hang out with us. taunt us. We'll joke. We'll be silly. We'll be stupid. We'll make jokes. We'll have some fun laughing together. Now, 2 special streams coming up on Wednesdays. This Wednesday night this month, plan to be here, people. Okay, Wednesdays are big nights here this month. I'm still working on the last Wednesday of the month as a possible thing, but the next 2 Wednesdays, please, yeah, like shameless self promotion is the key. There you go. You got to. Nobody's going to toot your horn but you. But hey, next Wednesday night, I'm going to have none other than the Queen of Florida, the great Lorena Creole, and Theme Park Casual on the Talk Theme Parks next week. We're going to be chilling with Theme Park Edition. So Wednesday, and join us for that. It'll be a fun time. They both cover a lot of theme park stuff. We might do something a little bit different, but great show coming up. Please join us there next Wednesday. Then the following Wednesday is another At the Movies with the great Daisy Blossom Flower Child. Well, we're going to talk about everybody's favorite, the movie that foretold the future before anything else, Demolition Man, and the 3 seashells. Will we ever figure out what the 3 seashells mean or how to use them? I don't know. It's one of those unsolved mysteries that maybe better never to have heard the answer to. So join us for that on the Wednesday the 19th at 8 p.m. And with that, catch our videos and everything. Playbacks on YouTube at DadmanWalking55, on Twitch at DadmanWalking55. And as always, my Twitter handle, DadmanWalking55, which is the way to get the most up-to-date information, see what's going on, and you get stream updates. But also on YouTube, make sure you hit that bell and get the notifications. Tonight, hit that like button too, sub if you haven't, and also turn your notifications on Twitch, so that you know that we've gone live. And yeah, just notice this. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I noticed that too. You're talking about this one? Yeah, I absolutely. That's the picture we got from Lorena. So yep, that's what we use. So absolutely. And as a great Snortapoopas Crew Burr says, take care of every human. Thank you for all of y'all that have been out in the chat. Y'all been on fire. Y'all been fabulous. Thank you to those who have lurked. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for chiming in with your feedback to us. For everything positive, supporting, and just even if you disagree with some things, that's awesome. But everybody have a wonderful night. You take care, and we'll see you next time. See you tomorrow night. Bye.